Mark, we're eliminating your position, effective immediately. Kevin Walsh dropped that bomb at 8:17 a.m. on a Tuesday. I knew something was up the second I walked into his office and saw Rebecca Martinez from management sitting there with her legal pad. You don't get called in with HR present for good news. But after 19 years, just like that, my name's Mark Thompson. I'm 52, and up until that moment I was senior network engineer at TechFlow Industries here in Denver. For nearly 2 decades, I'd been the guy keeping their entire IT infrastructure from falling apart. From dial-up days to cloud migrations, 4 different CEOs, 3 company acquisitions. I'd seen it all and fixed most of it. Clean out your desk by end of day, Kevin added, not even looking at me. I understand, I said, gave him a nod and walked out. No drama, no begging. What's the point? Back at my desk, I could feel the younger guys watching me pack up my stuff. News travels fast in our business. Most of these kids were developers I'd trained myself. Good people. But they didn't have a clue how our legacy systems actually worked or where I'd hidden all the admin back doors over the years. Family photo with Jennifer and Andrew. Coffee mug Andrew made in high school shop class. That little cactus that somehow survived 19 years under these fluorescent lights. Tommy Rodriguez, one of the junior engineers, came over looking like someone kicked his dog. Mark, this is complete garbage. You practically built our entire network. I shrugged. Companies change direction. But with no warning? After everything you've done for this place? It's fine, Tommy. Really. It wasn't fine, but I wasn't going to make a scene. As I carried my box to the parking garage, Kevin stood in his doorway watching me leave, making sure I actually went through with it. What none of these people bothered to notice over the years was that I'd become the most critical person in that building. Not because I was some genius, but because I was thorough. I documented everything, set up proper audit protocols, kept backups of all the important stuff, including things they probably forgot I had access to. I sat in my Ford F-150 for a minute, looking back at that glass and steel building where I'd spent most of my adult life. Started working there when Andrew was in kindergarten. Now he's 26, working as a mechanical engineer down in Colorado Springs. Jennifer used to joke that the servers were my second family. She wasn't completely wrong. They had no idea what they'd just done. Here's the thing. I'd been at TechFlow since they were just 2 floors in a business park off I-25. Watched the company grow from 50 employees to over 800. Survived 3 acquisitions. Countless digital transformation initiatives that management got all excited about, then abandoned 6 months later. Kevin became my direct supervisor 5 years back. Young MBA type from CU Boulder who insisted on calling our department IT resources instead of just the IT guys. Had all these buzzwords about streamlining and efficiency, which usually meant doing twice the work with half the people. At first, I tried helping him understand our systems, the complexity that builds up over nearly 2 decades of growth and patches and workarounds. We need to future-proof everything, he'd say in those Monday meetings, looking right past me like I wasn't even there. About 8 months ago, he brought in this consultant named Michelle Brooks. Expensive suit, firm handshake, MIT degree she managed to work into every conversation. They'd huddle up in the conference rooms, talking in low voices whenever I walked by. Then about 4 months back, I started noticing my access permissions getting quietly modified. Nothing obvious, just small changes to administrative controls here and there. I could have made a stink about it, but instead I just watched, took notes. You seem different lately, Jennifer said one evening. We were sitting on our back deck watching the sun set over the Rockies. Everything okay at work? I took a sip of my Coors. Just the usual changes, nothing I haven't dealt with before. But these changes felt different. I was getting cut out of important meetings. Emails about system upgrades stopped including me. Projects I'd normally handle were getting assigned to the younger guys. That's when I found it. A company-wide memo about modernization initiatives that nobody'd bothered to share with me. It outlined a complete restructuring of IT under new leadership, Michelle Brooks. My position wasn't even on the new org chart. Same day, I was running one of my regular security scans. The boring background maintenance stuff that nobody else wanted to do anymore. When I noticed something weird in our financial software. Regular payments going out to some vendor I'd never heard of. Summit Tech Solutions. Quick search showed it was registered about 2 years ago. Business address led to one of those UPS stores on Colfax. The payments started small about 24 months back, but they'd been growing steadily. I didn't say anything to anyone, just made copies of everything and kept digging. Sometimes being the quiet guy in the corner pays off. People forget you're there, forget you're listening, forget you have access to things you probably shouldn't. The morning after getting canned, I sat in my home office staring at my laptop. No alarm clock going off at 6 a.m., no commute down I-25, just silence and the weight of what had happened. Jennifer brought me coffee without saying a word. After 22 years of marriage, she knows when I need space to think. "Going to run errands?" she said eventually. "You need anything?" I shook my head. After she left, I unlocked the bottom drawer of my desk and pulled out a flash drive, one of several I kept for just-in-case situations. Now, company policy strictly prohibited taking any data home, but a few years back when our legal department needed audit systems for tracking potential insider threats, I'd been crystal clear about needing off-site backups for security purposes. They signed off on it, then promptly forgot all about it. I plugged the drive in and started going through the files. Internal emails, meeting minutes, financial records that most employees would never see. And there it was, the complete history of payments to Summit Tech Solutions. Over $4.2 million in 24 months. Holy shit. The approval chain led straight to our CFO, Richard Martinez. Every single payment had his digital signature on it. I dug deeper, cross-referencing dates and dollar amounts. The payments lined up perfectly with software license renewals for systems we used company-wide, but the numbers were inflated. Sometimes 20%, sometimes 30%. Small enough not to raise red flags during quarterly reviews, but large enough to add up fast. I pulled up the business registration for Summit Tech Solutions. Listed owner, Michael Martinez. Didn't take a genius to figure out that connection. Quick look at social media confirmed it. Richard's son. Kid was supposedly running some kind of tech consulting business out of his apartment in Boulder. They were siphoning company money through fake markups on legitimate expenses. Pretty slick, actually. I leaned back in my chair, feeling something cold settle in my gut. For 19 years, I'd been the reliable guy. Fixed problems, protected data, worked weekends without complaint. Never asked for promotions or raises, just did my job, and they threw me away like last week's newspaper. My phone buzzed with a text from Tommy. "Sorry about yesterday, man. Total BS what they did. Michelle's already moving her stuff into your old office." I set the phone down without responding. The pieces were starting to fit together now. Kevin and Richard needed me gone before anyone could connect the dots on their little scheme. They probably figured the evidence would disappear with me, that I was just some aging IT guy who wouldn't know fraud if it bit him on the ass. Wrong on both counts. I opened my email and started typing a message to the board of directors, then stopped, finger hovering over the send button. Too direct. Too easy to dismiss as sour grapes from a fired employee. I needed leverage, a way to expose this whole thing that couldn't be ignored or swept under the rug. I deleted the draft and started making different plans. Tomorrow was Wednesday, board meeting day. But first I needed to dig deeper into this rabbit hole. Took me about 3 hours, but I found it. Summit Tech wasn't Richard's first creative accounting project. Going back 3 years, there was another pattern. Consulting fees to something called Alpine Business Services, different name, same game, inflated invoices for services that were either partial or never actually rendered. Traced the registration on that one too. Alpine Business Services was owned by Patricia Martinez, Richard's wife. The woman was apparently CEO of a company with no website, no employees, and an address that turned out to be another mailbox service on Federal Boulevard. But here's the kicker. I found email archives showing Kevin wasn't just aware of these arrangements. He'd helped set them up. In exchange, his IT department got budget increases while other departments faced cuts year after year. Even Michelle Brooks fit into this whole mess. Her consulting contract had been approved through some unusual process that bypassed normal procurement channels. Her real job wasn't modernizing our IT infrastructure. It was getting rid of the one person who might notice the financial patterns, me. Over the past 4 years, they'd diverted nearly $6.8 million total, $2.6 million through Alpine, $4.2 million through Summit Tech. I gathered everything into a comprehensive report, spreadsheets showing the payment patterns, business registrations linking the shell companies to Richard's family, email chains proving Kevin's involvement. Then I did something they wouldn't expect. I called William Bill Reynolds, a board member I'd worked with during a big security implementation about 3 years back. Semi-retired now, but still showed up for the quarterly meetings. "Mark Thompson," he said when he picked up. "Haven't heard from you in a while. Thought you were still at TechFlow." "Not anymore. Bill, I need maybe 15 minutes of your time. It's important." Long pause. This have anything to do with why Richard and Kevin looked so stressed at yesterday's meeting? "Could be," he chuckled. "Always figured you knew where all the bodies were buried, where you want to meet." Hour later, we were sitting on a bench at Washington Park, about 3 miles from TechFlow headquarters. I handed him a sealed envelope with printed copies of everything plus a flash drive. "That's the whole story," I told him. "Dates, amounts, who's connected to what. I'm not looking to get my job back. I'm not looking for money. I just want the right people to know what's been going on." Bill studied me for a long minute. "Why bring this to me instead of going straight to the cops or the press?" "Because you actually read the audit reports in those board meetings. I've watched you ask the hard questions when numbers don't add up." He nodded slowly and pocketed the envelope. "There's an emergency finance committee session scheduled for Friday morning. Quarterly review. Convenient timing. Mark, if this stuff checks out, there's going to be serious consequences. You understand that? I'm counting on it." Walking back to my truck, I felt lighter somehow. Not happy exactly, but focused. Like I finally had a plan. That afternoon, my phone started ringing. Job offers from 2 different companies, both for positions above what I'd been doing at TechFlow, both offering signing bonuses that would have made my old salary look like pocket change. Word travels fast in Denver's tech scene. News that I was suddenly available had gotten around. I let them all go to voicemail. This wasn't about finding another job anymore. That evening, Jennifer and I sat on the back deck with a couple of beers, watching the sun disappear behind the mountains. "So what's really going on?" she asked. "And don't give me that just changes line again." I told her everything, the whole story, start to finish. She listened without interrupting, which is one of the things I love about her after all these years. "What do you want to happen now?" she asked when I was done. Good question. The revenge part was already in motion. Bill would present my evidence to the board on Friday. The people who'd screwed me over were about to get screwed themselves. But what did I actually want? I want them to know they picked the wrong guy to mess with, I said finally. She smiled and clinked her bottle against mine. "Then let's see how this plays out." Thursday morning I woke up with a plan, not just the evidence I'd already given Bill. That was just the opening move. I needed something bigger, something that would force their hand before they had time to cover their tracks. See, here's what most people don't understand about AT work. When you've been managing systems for nearly 20 years, you don't just have access to current data. You have access to everything. Email archives going back to when the company still used Exchange 2003. Financial databases with transaction logs that never get purged. Security audit trails that capture every login, every file access, every administrative change. And I'd set up most of these systems myself. Before they'd cut my network access Tuesday afternoon, I'd done something Kevin and his MBA brain probably never thought about. I'd activated a monitoring script I'd written years ago for tracking system anomalies. Completely legitimate IT security tool, buried deep in the system maintenance routines where nobody ever looked. Except this version was sending copies of certain financial transactions to an external email account I'd set up for disaster recovery testing. All above board, all documented in my security protocols from 2019. Wednesday night, while Jennifer was grading papers and I was supposedly watching Netflix, I'd been combing through 6 months' worth of these automated reports. That's when I found the smoking gun. Not just the payments to Summit Tech and Alpine, I already had those. This was something else. Email exchanges between Richard and Kevin from just 3 weeks ago, discussing how to handle the Mark situation before the quarterly audit. Kevin had written, "Michelle says she can have the transition completed by end of month. Once Mark's gone, the new permission structure will prevent anyone else from accessing the legacy financial modules." Richard's response? Good. The board's getting more aggressive about expense reviews. We need this cleaned up before the annual audit in November. They'd planned this. Not just firing me, but specifically timing it to hide their fraud. I printed everything and drove it to Kinko's to make copies. Then I did something that felt pretty good. I scheduled a mass email to go out to every TechFlow board member at 8 a.m. Friday morning, right before their emergency finance committee meeting. Subject line: urgent. Financial irregularities requiring board review. The email was simple and professional. Dear board members, Please review the attached documentation before approving any executive bonuses or financial decisions today. This information concerns systematic diversion of company funds over the past 4 years. Additional documentation available upon request. M. Thompson, former senior network engineer. Attached was my complete report, including the email exchanges about getting rid of me. Thursday afternoon, my phone started ringing. Kevin's number first. I let it go to voicemail. His message was tense. "Mark, we need to talk about some communications the board received. Call me immediately." "Yeah, right." Next came Rebecca from management. "Mr. Thompson, we've received some concerning allegations from you that may violate your separation agreement. Please contact our legal department immediately." Funny thing about that separation agreement. I never signed one. They'd been in such a hurry to get me out the door, they forgot that little detail. By 4 p.m., the calls were coming faster. Michelle Brooks, didn't even know I had her number. Some lawyer I'd never heard of. Even got a call from Richard Martinez himself. I answered that one. "Mark, I think there's been a misunderstanding about some company financial processes," he said, trying to sound calm. "Why don't we meet tomorrow morning, just you and me? We can clear this whole thing up." "Sorry, Richard, I'm busy tomorrow morning. Besides, I think the board might be very interested in hearing about Summit Tech Solutions and your son, Michael." Long silence. Then, "You're making a serious mistake here. We can work something out. Better severance package, good references, whatever you need. What I need is for people to stop stealing from the company I spent 19 years helping to build. Look, if you think you found some irregularities, I don't think anything. I know exactly what you and Kevin have been doing. I have 4 years' worth of documentation, including emails where you discussed firing me to cover it up." Another pause. That could be misinterpreted." "Could be. Guess we'll find out what the board thinks." I hung up. Within an hour, Rebecca had emailed me again. Suddenly, my severance package had magically doubled with an attached confidentiality agreement requiring my complete silence about all company matters. They were scrambling now, but they still thought they were dealing with simple extortion. They had no clue what was really coming. Friday morning, I got up early and drove to that same bench in Washington Park. Wanted to be somewhere I could see my phone, but away from the house in case anyone decided to pay me a visit. At exactly 8 a.m., my scheduled email delivered its payload to all 7 board members. By 8:15, my phone was buzzing with calls from numbers I didn't recognize, probably board members' assistants trying to reach me. At 8:45, Tommy texted, "Dude, something big is happening here. Police cars in the parking lot. Richard's office door is closed with security guards outside." I smiled and typed back, "Probably just routine audit stuff." By 9:30 a.m., the Emergency Finance Committee meeting would have started. Bill would be sitting at that conference table with my documentation in hand, watching faces as board members read through my email and attachments. At 9:47, Bill called. "Mark, you son of a bitch, this is a goddamn earthquake. That bad?" "Richard confessed about 10 minutes ago. Soon as we confronted him with your evidence, he started trying to cut some kind of deal, blaming Kevin for pressuring him, saying it started small and got out of hand." "What about Kevin?" "Denying everything. Claims he had no knowledge of the financial arrangements, says he was just following orders about restructuring IT. Michelle's in there claiming she was just a consultant with no knowledge of any financial improprieties." "Board buying it?" "Hell no. We've suspended all 3 pending full investigation. FBI's been called. Forensic accountants will be here Monday morning." I leaned back on the bench, watching a couple of joggers go by. "What's the damage looking like?" "Preliminary estimate is $6.8 million, just like your report said. Maybe more once the forensics team digs deeper. Not bad for a day's work." "There's something else, Mark," Bill continued. "Board wants to talk to you, not just about coming back. They're talking about creating a whole new position. Chief Security Officer reporting directly to the Board of Directors. I hadn't expected that." "Seriously?" "Dead serious. After what you uncovered, they realize we need someone watching the watchers. Someone who actually knows where all the digital bodies are buried. I'll think about it." "Don't think too long. There are going to be a lot of changes around here real fast." That afternoon, sitting on my back deck with a beer, I watched the local news. Channel 9 had picked up the story. TechFlow Industries executives under investigation for financial fraud. No names yet, but that would come. Jennifer came out and sat beside me. "So how does it feel? How does what feel? Getting your revenge." I thought about that for a minute. "Honestly, it feels like I just did my job. Found a problem, documented it, reported it to the right people." She laughed. Right. Just happened to be a $6.8 million problem that got your boss and his buddies arrested. Well, when you put it like that. My phone buzzed with a text from Andrew down in Colorado Springs. Dad, just saw the news about TechFlow. That's your company, right? You okay? I called him back. Yeah, I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. What happened? News is saying something. Is about executives getting arrested for fraud? I gave him the short version. He listened without interrupting. Gets that from his mom. So you basically took down a whole conspiracy by yourself? He said when I was done. I just paid attention to things other people ignored. Dad, that's pretty badass. Coming from a 26-year-old engineer, I'll take that as a compliment. Monday morning, I put on my best suit and drove to TechFlow headquarters. The security guard, same guy who'd watched me leave with my cardboard box the week before, practically jumped out of his chair when he saw me. Mr. Thompson, good to see you, sir. They're expecting you upstairs. Upstairs turned out to be the executive conference room on the 12th floor, place I'd never had any reason to visit before. All 7 board members were there, along with the interim CEO, Sarah Walsh, who'd been promoted from COO after they suspended the previous management team. Mark, Bill said as I walked in, thanks for coming. I sat down at the far end of the polished conference table. Figured I owed you that much. Sarah Walsh cleared her throat. Mr. Thompson, what you've brought to light is unprecedented in this company's history. The forensic accountants have confirmed your findings and discovered additional irregularities we're still investigating. I nodded but didn't say anything. The total appears to be closer to $7.2 million over 4 years, she continued. Criminal charges are being filed against all 3 individuals. The FBI has opened a formal investigation. Good. We've also discovered that the scheme goes back further than we initially thought. There were other shell companies, other fraudulent contracts. You may be called as a witness. Whatever you need. Bill leaned forward. Mark, the board has voted unanimously to offer you the position of Chief Security Officer. Full executive privileges, direct reporting to the board, complete audit authority across all departments. He slid a folder across the table. Your contract terms are in there. I think you'll find them generous. I opened the folder and scanned the first page. The salary was almost double what I'd been making. Stock options, full benefits, company car. There's one more thing, Sarah said. We're implementing new oversight protocols for all financial transactions above $10,000. We want someone watching who can't be bought, can't be intimidated, and who understands our systems inside and out. Someone like me. Exactly like you. I closed the folder. I'll need to bring in my own people. Tommy Rodriguez gets promoted to senior network engineer, reporting to me, full authority to redesign our security infrastructure from the ground up. Done. And I want quarterly presentations to the full board about any financial irregularities, no matter how small. Also done. I stood up and shook hands with each board member. When do you want me to start? How about right now? Bill said with a grin. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new corner office, same building, but now on the executive floor, with a view of downtown Denver and the mountains beyond. Tommy knocked on my door. Got a minute, boss? What's up? Just finished the quarterly security audit. Everything's clean, but I wanted you to review the financial transaction reports. I smiled. Kid was learning fast. Richard Martinez had pled guilty to multiple fraud charges and got 5 years federal time. Kevin was still fighting the charges, but his lawyer was pushing for a plea deal. Michelle Brooks had been extradited from Canada and was looking at 3 years. Most of the money had been recovered. TechFlow's stock price had actually gone up after news broke about the fraud investigation. Investors liked companies that could clean house when necessary. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. Dinner with Andrew tonight. He wants to hear more stories about how his old man became a corporate detective. I looked out at the Colorado sunset painting the sky red and orange behind the Rockies. 20 years I'd been fixing problems for this company. Now I was fixing the biggest problem of all, making sure it never happened again. Tommy was still waiting in my doorway. The reports look good, I told him, but keep digging. There's always something. He nodded and headed back to his desk. Smart kid, he'd go far. I leaned back in my chair and smiled. Sometimes the quiet guy wins after all.